The Palm Coast Historical Society hosted author Bob Kealing to share his experience and thoughts of the 60th anniversary of the Beatles' performance at the Gator Bowl here in Florida, and his interactions with the Beatles during his career as a reporter. We asked the president of the Historical Society to share some of her thoughts on his presentation.
All right, we're here with Kathy, the president of the Palm Coast Historical Society. Tell us a little bit about how special today was for the whole community.
We were so excited to be able to present this book, Good Day Sunshine State, on the 60th anniversary of the Beatles invasion. It was 60 years ago this month that they performed at the Gator Bowl, and so we thought it would be so appropriate to have the author of this book here to share his research with the citizens of Palm Coast.
Did he share any facts that you didn't know already?
Well, I read the book before his presentation, and yes, there were lots of facts inside the book that I'd never heard of. And I was glad to have him review that today because, of course, you know, these details slip away sometimes.
So what do you think it is about the Beatles that even the enthusiasm today was still the same as it was 40, 50, 60 years ago?
Isn't it amazing? It's really hard to define, and I'm not sure if anyone's been able to do that, but it was a new sound. He talked about the innocence of the Beatles at that time, and I think that was a bridge that they were able to have between other groups that maybe came before them. The black musicians who weren't recognized for their talent but certainly were influential in the Beatles' music. But they were just unlike anything anyone had ever seen at that time. Like I said, when I was in kindergarten, I fell in love and thought I'd marry Paul McCartney. And that has, you know, obviously I realized that was not reality at some point, but still they turned out today and they wanted to share those memories from long ago.
Well, maybe we'll get lucky and Sir Paul will hear this and come knocking at the door. We have to ask, what is your favorite Beatles song?
I think I Want to Hold Your Hand would have to rate right up there because it was the first one that resonated with me.
Reporter Daniel Anderson spoke to the author to get some insight on how and why he wrote the book about the Beatles' stay in Florida in their early years.
Bob, tell us a little bit about the presentation and what you hope people take away from it today.
It's amazing the connection the Beatles had with Florida. They spent more time in Florida, almost 2 weeks in 1964, than anywhere else in North America. And their experiences here, their time here, literally made history. And I just want people to be proud of that fact.
So today you also mentioned their experiences with Martin Luther King Jr. And St. Augustine is bringing forward that time of turmoil that was on in there. How important is it for us to remember those things?
Well, because the Beatles stood for something. And this was their first American activism on that historic first tour in '64 when they said, look, we can't have any credibility with the African American artists on our tours if we let them be treated as second-class citizens. And we won't have segregated facilities. They all need to be treated equally, and we feel it's the same for our audiences. You know, we want them all to be able to sit anywhere they want.
As you research the project, is there anything that you didn't know?
There were many things. And that was the beauty of doing, you know, this primary source research and being able to hold a 4-page letter from Paul McCartney that he wrote in 1964. Or just, you know, the oral histories were fantastic. So you go straight to the story, to the people you won't necessarily find in Google searches and things like that. So much has been written about the Beatles that you really have to go to the source to come up with something original yourself.
Have you had an experience or an opportunity to interview any of the Beatles?
I haven't interviewed the Beatles, but I have had encounters with both living Beatles. There's one I use in my presentation with Paul McCartney. The other was outside the Ryman Auditorium in Nashville. It was Ringo, and he was there with his all-star band, and it was 2019. So I'm standing out behind the Ryman, and I see this big Cadillac Escalade there. And sure enough, within a few minutes, coming out the side door is Ringo, looking resplendent in white, does one of these, gets in the Escalade, comes by, sees me there. I'm standing there with my phone rolling video. So the vehicle stops, and he rolls down the window, and as close as I am to you, he goes, "Peace and love, God bless."
Were you just stunned?
I was thrilled. I thought it was great, just because that's so Ringo, and it just and it's in the book too, just to have those kind of up close encounters with the Beatles. It's something you treasure.
Of all of the musical talent out there, why did you want to do the Beatles?
I just don't think there's anybody like them. And I was the youngest of 6 kids, and I inherited all of my sister's Beatles vinyl. And I got to know them musically a great deal when I was 6, 7 years old. So the Beatles have always just been part of my life, and many others too. And it was really a treasure to be able to share these stories.